One of the most popular garments in the world began as underwear. Then sailors wore it, workers sweated through it, movie stars made it cool, and companies realized your chest could become a billboard. Before a t-shirt became the easiest thing you could pull from a drawer, getting dressed was a much bigger job. Imagine waking up on a hot morning and not reaching for a soft cotton shirt. Instead, you start with an undershirt or a long layer close to your skin, then maybe a stiff shirt, then buttons, then a collar, then a waistcoat, a jacket, or a dress structure that tells the world exactly where you belong. If you walked outside in only a simple undershirt, people would not think you looked relaxed. They would think you forgot to finish getting dressed. That is what makes the t-shirt so strange. Today, it can be pajamas, workwear, sportswear, fashion, protest, advertising, or a memory from a concert. But for a long time, the thing we now wear in public started as something private, something hidden, something closer to underwear than style. And if stories like this make normal clothes feel a little less normal, subscribe, because this channel is all about the strange history hiding in plain sight. For most of history, clothing was not built around comfort first. It was built around rules. A shirt was not just a shirt. A collar could show respectability. A jacket could show class. A clean white garment could show that you did not work in dirt. Even the number of layers on your body could send a message before you said a word. In many Western societies, being properly dressed meant covering the body in a way that looked controlled. Men wore shirts under waistcoats and coats. Women often wore shifts or chemises under structured dresses, stays, corsets, petticoats, and outer garments. These inner layers had a job. They touched the skin, caught sweat, and protected the more expensive clothing on top. That mattered because washing clothes was not easy. You could not just toss everything into a machine and press a button. Laundry took water, soap, heat, scrubbing, drying space, and time. So the layer closest to the body was often the layer meant to take the punishment. The ancestor of the t-shirt lived in that world. It was not meant to be seen. It was there to absorb sweat, protect outer clothes, and make the body easier to manage under all those layers. This is why the idea of wearing a t-shirt by itself would have seemed so odd. It would be like walking outside in your underwear and calling it an outfit. The fabric might be comfortable. The shape might be useful, but society had not yet decided that comfort was enough. And that is the real beginning of the t-shirt story. Not a glamorous runway, not a celebrity photo, not a designer sketch. Just the problem of getting dressed in a world where clothing was expensive, laundry was hard, and the layer closest to your skin was supposed to stay hidden. But once people started needing clothes that were easier to wash, easier to move in, and easier to wear in heat, that hidden layer began to change. Before the t-shirt had its own name, people already had garments doing a similar job. They were not always shaped like the shirts we know now. Some were long, some had buttons, some were part of full-body underwear. But they all answered the same basic problem. How do you keep sweat, dirt, and body odor away from your better clothes? For women, one of the most important inner garments was the chemise, or shift. It was usually a simple loose layer worn under dresses and stays. It protected the body from stiff clothing, and it protected the outer clothing from the body. That may sound small, but it was a big deal in a world where outer garments could be expensive and difficult to clean. For men, shirts often played a similar role. A white shirt was partly underwear and partly a sign of respectability. The clean collar and cuffs could be visible, but much of the shirt stayed under coats and waistcoats. If the shirt looked clean, it told people something about your habits, your money, and sometimes your job. Then came union suits. A union suit was a one-piece undergarment that covered the torso and legs. Think of long underwear, but connected from shoulder to ankle. It was practical in cold weather, but it was not exactly convenient. It had buttons. It covered a lot of the body, and if you only wanted a simple top layer under your clothes, the full suit was more than you needed. Over time, people began cutting the idea apart. The one-piece undergarment became separate tops and bottoms. That separate top is one of the clearest ancestors of the t-shirt. But the early versions still belonged to the private world of underwear. A man could wear one under a work shirt. A sailor could wear one under a uniform. A laborer could wear one beneath tougher outer clothing. But wearing it as the main shirt in polite public life was still a different matter. Then manufacturers noticed something. Buttons were annoying. They broke. They came loose. They needed sewing. And not every man knew how to sew, or had someone nearby who would do it for him. Around the early 1900s, the Cooper Underwear Company began advertising a buttonless pullover undershirt. It was aimed at bachelors, men living without wives or mothers to repair their clothes. The selling point was simple: no buttons, no safety pins, no needle, no thread. That was not the birth of the t-shirt from nothing. People had worn t-shirt-like undergarments before. But Cooper helped make the idea easier to sell. A soft, stretchy undershirt that you could pull over your head and wear without fuss. And the reason it existed was not fashion. It was convenience. It was sweat. It was laundry. It was men trying to get through hot work, cold mornings, uniforms, and daily life without fighting their own clothing. That is why the t-shirt's origin is hard to pin on one inventor. Clothes usually do not appear in one perfect moment. They change because millions of people keep running into the same problem. In this case, the problem was simple. People needed an underlayer that was cheap, washable, comfortable, and easy to wear. Once that buttonless undershirt existed, the next step was not a fashion show. It was a uniform. And uniforms have a strange way of making private clothing visible. The U.S. Navy helped turn the t-shirt from a useful undergarment into something millions of men would know by feel. In 1913, the Navy began issuing a white cotton crewneck undershirt as part of its uniform. It was short-sleeved, simple, and easy to wash. Laid flat, it had that basic T shape. Body straight down, sleeves sticking out from the sides. That shape was not fancy. That was the point. A sailor needed clothing that could survive heat, sweat, cramped spaces, and hard work. On ships, men were lifting, cleaning, hauling, repairing, and moving through places where a full uniform could become uncomfortable fast. The undershirt absorbed sweat under the uniform. But in hot conditions, sailors sometimes stripped down to just that shirt while working. Think about how strange that shift was. A garment that was supposed to be hidden under a uniform was suddenly being seen on decks, in engine rooms, around docks, and in photographs of military life. It was still underwear in the official sense, but in practice, it had started doing the job of a shirt. The military did not make the t-shirt cool at first. It made it normal. That difference matters. When thousands of young men wear the same garment every day, they get used to it. They learn that it is comfortable. They learn that it dries faster than heavier clothing. They learn that it can take dirt, sweat, and hard movement without making life harder. And when those men leave military life, some habits come with them. The same thing happened with workers. Miners, dock workers, farm workers, factory workers, mechanics, and builders all had reasons to like simple undershirts. Heavy clothing could trap heat, buttons could snag or break, a plain cotton shirt could be washed, replaced, and worn hard. For people doing physical labor, clothing was not about looking polished every minute. It was about getting through the day. Can you move your arms? Can you stay cooler? Can you sweat without ruining something expensive? Can you wash it and wear it again? The t-shirt answered yes. But that created a social split. The same garment that made sense for sailors and workers could still look too rough for polite public settings. A man in a t-shirt might look practical on a job site, but unfinished on a city street. It carried the smell of labor, heat, and the body. For many people, that was exactly why it was not considered proper outerwear. Still, the old clothing rules were weakening. Industrial life changed what people needed from clothes. More people worked in factories, warehouses, ports, and machines. More people lived in hot, crowded cities. Ready-made clothing became cheaper and easier to buy. Cotton knit fabric, the stretchy kind used in t-shirts, could be produced in large quantities. The shirt was no longer only something stitched slowly for one person. It could become a mass product. That quiet industrial change is one reason the t-shirt spread so fast. It was not delicate. It was not expensive. It did not need a tailor to make it useful. It could be folded, stacked, shipped, issued, sold, dirtied, washed, and replaced. There is something almost shocking about that, because the t-shirt's power came from being ordinary. It did not ask for careful handling. It did not need status to survive. It was built for bodies that moved, sweated, worked, and got tired. And slowly that started to change what people thought a dressed body could look like. The more men wore t-shirts in military and labor settings, the less strange the garment became. It still had a private past, but it was gaining a public life. It was moving from the drawer to the deck, from the uniform layer to the work site, from something hidden to something people could recognize instantly. But comfort alone was not enough to make the t-shirt fashionable. For that, it needed a new meaning. It needed a face. And in the middle of the 20th century, Hollywood gave it one. By the 1940s and 1950s, the t-shirt was still simple cotton, but the meaning around it was changing fast. World War II helped push it further into public view. Soldiers and sailors wore t-shirts in training, in hot weather, and under uniforms. Photographs showed young men in plain white shirts looking strong, relaxed, and practical. When the war ended, many returned home with the habit already built into their daily lives. The shirt had followed them through work, heat, boredom, discipline, and danger. So when they came back, it did not feel like a strange fashion experiment. It felt familiar. Then Hollywood turned that familiarity into an image. A plain white t-shirt on screen could do something a suit could not. It showed the body. It looked direct. It looked young. It made a man seem physical, restless, and a little hard to control. On actors like Marlon Brando and James Dean, the t-shirt stopped looking like laundry and started looking like attitude. That was a major break from older clothing rules. For decades, respectability had been layered. A proper man in public was often expected to look buttoned, collared, and covered. The shirt was tucked. The jacket was present. The outfit created distance between the body and the world. The t-shirt did the opposite. It reduced that distance. It was soft, close, and plain. It made the body visible without the armor of formal clothing. And for younger people, that made it powerful. When did looking underdressed start looking cool? The answer is not just one movie or one actor. It was a bigger cultural shift. After the war, teenagers and young adults had more influence as consumers. Casual clothing became more acceptable. Sportswear entered daily life. The old line between work clothes, underwear, and fashion began to blur. The t-shirt sat right in the middle of that blur. Older generations could still see it as sloppy, but younger people could see something else. It looked honest. It looked rebellious. It looked like you were not trying too hard, which of course became its own kind of style. That is one of the funniest tricks fashion ever pulled. A garment created to be invisible became popular because it looked exposed. It was not decorated. It did not announce wealth. It did not need a collar. The plainness became the message. And once the t-shirt became acceptable in public, it became a perfect blank surface. At first, a white t-shirt could stand for military toughness, working-class grit, or teenage rebellion. But soon, people realized it could carry words and images too. Schools, Companies, political campaigns, tourist shops, bands, sports teams, and activists all began to use it. That changed the t-shirt again. It was no longer just something you wore. It became something that spoke for you. A suit might tell people you had a job. A uniform might tell people you belonged to an organization. But a printed t-shirt could tell people what music you loved, what joke you wanted to make, what cause you supported, where you had been, or what group you wanted to be seen with. That was a new kind of clothing language. Cheaper, faster, louder. And once the shirt could carry a message, there was almost no limit to where it could go. The printed t-shirt turned a cheap cotton undershirt into one of the loudest pieces of clothing in the world. That is a strange thing to say about something so plain. But think about what a t-shirt can do now. It can advertise a soda. It can remember a concert. It can support a protest. It can make a joke. It can show a school, a team, a brand, a vacation spot, a movie, a campaign, or a belief, all on a piece of cloth that began as underwear. In the middle of the 20th century, printing on t-shirts became easier and more common. Companies saw that the shirt was not just clothing, it was walking space. A person could become a moving billboard without feeling like one because the garment was already comfortable and casual. Then music culture made it personal. A band shirt was not just proof that you bought something, it told people what sound you belonged to. It could say, "These are my people. This is my taste. This is what I want strangers to know before I even speak." Politics found the same power. Protest shirts could turn a crowd into a message. Campaign shirts could turn supporters into advertising. Slogans could move through streets, campuses, stadiums, and television screens. A poster stayed on a wall. A t-shirt walked. And that is why the t-shirt became so different from the clothing that came before it. Older clothing often told people about your place in society without asking you. It could reveal class, job, gender expectations, or respectability. The t-shirt still does that sometimes, but it also lets the wearer choose a message very directly. It can be cheap or expensive, plain or printed, serious or ridiculous. It can be sold in a luxury store or handed out at a charity event. The same basic shape can mean almost anything. That would have been hard to imagine in the older world of layered dressing. Back then, a person's clothes were often built around covering, structuring, and presenting the body according to strict rules. The t-shirt helped loosen those rules. It made comfort visible. It made casual clothing normal. It helped turn the dressed body from something controlled by layers into something more relaxed, personal, and direct. Of course, the t-shirt did not do this alone. Washing machines, cheaper cotton, factories, youth culture, war, advertising, movies, sports, and changing ideas about the body all played a part. But the t-shirt carried those changes better than almost anything else. That is the real reason it matters. The t-shirt is simple because history made it simple. Its shape came from practical underwear. Its usefulness came from sweat, labor, heat, and uniforms. Its public image came from soldiers, workers, actors, teenagers, musicians, protesters, and brands. Every time it changed hands, it picked up a new meaning. So before t-shirts, getting dressed really did look different. It took more layers. It followed stricter rules. It hid more of the body. It made comfort less important than looking proper. Now, one of the most normal outfits in the world is a cotton shirt shaped like a letter T. A piece of clothing, once meant to disappear, became impossible to ignore. If you enjoyed seeing how something this ordinary changed the way people dress, subscribe for more hidden clothing history, because the next time you pull on a t-shirt, you are not just putting on a shirt. You are wearing the moment underwear escaped into public and never went back.